Welcome back. I am Paige Elizabeth, and I am here with Katie Warp Pinsky, board certified MD. I have not, I think, brought attention to that part in a while. And we speak weekly about all things body, mind, spirit as it pertains to women, in midlife over 35. And yeah, welcome. Today, we're going to talk about the importance of unpacking as you go, unpacking your baggage, unpacking your trauma. This is the topic. Trauma is kind of an ongoing theme in my line of work and with the program that I have, and Katie's one of my coaches. And we're going to talk some more about unpacking your trauma today and the importance of that. So welcome, Katie.
Good to be here. Let's unpack.
Yeah, all right. So it was Katie's idea to talk about this. So bring the audience up to speed on what motivated you to want to have this discussion today.
Well, I think like most people, I've gotten really into podcasts and I use them as a way of when I'm walking, doing my mental health walk. I just kind of throw on a podcast, just try to learn something new, just, switch it up. And I came across this podcast, this doctor, Dr. Sarah Sahal. I'm probably butchering that, but and she was talking about how 80% of autoimmune diseases are women, are in
Mhm.
women. And that really struck me because my research brain started being like, oh, 80%. Okay, so it's got to be linked to, and just start going through that part of the conversation in my head. And it was interesting because she said, it's not so much that women have, two X chromosomes because men have an X. She's like, it's that we have this innate response to take on others, to take on their emotional state, their fears, their stresses. You're constantly worrying and taking care of other people. And you might be the main caregiver, and you're raising children. And not that men don't have a role in that, but it's sort of like the main role in the traditional sense for women. And how also the older we get, the more prone you can be to autoimmune diseases. So she said it's the perimenopause to the menopause ages, which is like 40 to 55. So this is sort of speaking to our demographic. So I thought that was relevant. But she said it just kind of goes back to stress and all the things that we take on, and stress leads to leaky gut, which leads to, like that downstream effect of just how you feel, how your gut's feeling, literally. And bringing it full circle, the person interviewing her asked, "What's the number one thing you can do, though, to sort of staff off being susceptible to autoimmune diseases?" And in my brain, I'm thinking it's going to be like diet, exercise, medications, all these things. And she said, deal with your trauma.
Mhm.
And it just struck me because I'm, coming from an MD background, my brain's thinking, oh, there's going to be this protocol of like how to handle this. And she just said, deal with your trauma. And it just really struck me. And I thought it was very relevant to what we speak to.
Well, and that's why I added the trauma component into the program because it's so relevant. Like it's just so relevant. If you are doing everything on the conscious level to better your
Mhm.
health and your life, and yet your battery is still draining or you're still having symptoms, it's because
Mhm.
unconsciously that vagus nerve has got something clicking. It's a record clicking and it's draining that battery. If you've ever like this happened to me recently, I tried to download WhatsApp to my Mac because I was like, I'm tired of transferring like my overseas team, they'll send me a link in WhatsApp, but I want to see it on my Mac. And so I was like, let me just, but it wouldn't download the way I needed it to. And like really quickly, all of a sudden, my battery just wouldn't hold. And I was like, oh my gosh, I just got this Mac. What is going on? But I noticed, I was like, I can't get that app to download. Maybe that's the problem. And so I deleted it, and all of a sudden it was holding battery again. I was like, you little bitch. So But that's how I compare like the unconscious traumas that we have, because if we aren't moving that out of our system on a somatic
Mhm.
level, like viscerally, physiologically, if we're not getting it out of the body, it will drain that battery. Like
And it
100%.
it's just crazy because, again, just my brain coming from, medical and research background, like I believe in it, but for some reason, like it just wasn't fully engaging. It was like kept touching, but it was just like the idea of it and dealing with it. And, she said, yes, talk therapy is great, in addition to other things. She goes, but if you didn't talk yourself into something, how are you going to talk yourself out of it? And so she's like, what you need to be doing is physically working on releasing the trauma that has built up. And she's like, you don't even know the trauma is there. But like you said, if you're not moving forward or you just feel stuck and you're spinning your wheels, there is something running in the background that, and I know for myself, I know something's there, but I don't know what it is. And like you said, I'm used to being tangible. Like I can pinpoint there was this event on February 2nd at 2 p.m. and that's the event and that's the trauma. And it's clearly not the case.
Well, and that's again, I mean, there's levels to dealing with trauma. And that's why recently I had the hypervigilance removed because I kept attracting just bullshit situation after bullshit shit situation. And I'm just like, how many fucking people do I have to sue for mistreating me? Constantly prevailed. Like I knew it wasn't that kind of lesson. Like I wasn't the common denominator of being the bad guy. I was actually winning. But why did I keep attracting it? It's because I was stuck in hypervigilance. And so I was attracting this shoe drop situation to me, right? So cleared that out. Oh my gosh, felt so much more relaxed for the first time in years. Ever since the assault in 2019, I just was like, what's next? And it wasn't even the assault, Katie. It wasn't the assault that put me in that state of mind because I was so conscious in that moment. I remember just thinking, stay alert, stay conscious, stay present. Don't go unconscious because that's more to unpack. Like just stay present. It was so uncomfortable. Um, it was the litigation. It was the litigation process and the constant character assassinations and the depositions and the hearings and the motions and just the games they played.
Mhm.
That is what put me in hypervigilance ultimately. And then on the heels of that, I was like, it just occurred to me, I was like, I'm so tired of being apathetic. And if apathy is a defense mechanism, what's the trauma associated with my apathy, right? And when I went to my natural doctor and asked him to release it, I thought between COVID and the assault, that's what made me shut down. And he was like, no. He was like, who stole your joy?
Mm.
It's like, what relationship ended that broke you? And that what put me in apathy. And I was like, oh, you motherfucker. Like, like I did this to myself, obviously, but you know, that's ultimately when that relationship ended, like 2017, that's what did it actually. And I was in just this, it was probably more 2018 or 19 when I finally resigned to the apathy because I was grieving for a while first.
Yeah.
But yeah, that was what ultimately put me in that apathetic state. And apathy is just this place where we go to protect ourselves, from feeling lows, but also from feeling highs.
Yes.
And so I had to clear that. And when I finally did, I was like, finally, for the first time in years, excited to live again. And it's slippery, right? Like we don't always recognize that we are stuck in trauma because again, like the events aren't so obvious. Sometimes they are, like being assaulted, but they're not always so obvious.
And I'd never seen it put in those kinds of terms. Like I just always assumed trauma event
Hmm.
in this box. And so it's just had my wheels turning of like, okay, so what's the next step? So if somebody's watching this video and is feeling like, oh my gosh, that just clicked for me too, what is the next step?
Yeah. No, exactly. And I mean, that's why there's different components to what we do with women. I mean, we stick them on an elimination diet for 30 days. because we know that inflammation is a result of an immune system not modulating, right? So the immune system stops doing its job properly around 27, 28. Pretty much for everybody, depending on your lifestyle and habits, but that's roughly the time frame. And you'll hear people in their 20s, late 20s go, I'm not feeling the same. I can't recover from drinking as well, and I can't party as hard. Like that's
Mhm.
why. It's because the immune system just can't do its job as well because the filter is clogged, right? So now it's like everything's a threat, including your own body. So it starts to go after your own proteins and tissues.
Yep.
And if this goes unregulated, then it just gets worse. And we know that inflammation feeds on cortisol and cortisol feeds on inflammation. And so as your stress load compounds with time, that loop gets bigger and louder and stronger. And then the body just can only handle so much. And now the body's just in full on attack mode towards itself. And then you end up, once you get into your late 30s, early 40s, then you deal with the heart issues, the insulin resistance, you know what I mean? Like that stuff. And
Which leads into like the autoimmune stuff. And so people just hear autoimmune and it sounds technical and it's like,
well,
oh,
yeah, and
let's
you think
treat
you're
it.
born with it. You're not born with it.
No, she said it's majority is self-inflicted.
There
She
you
said
go.
your body literally wages civil war.
100%.
And she's like, it is the inflammation, and you can get blood work done, and you can check those enzymes. You can, your CRP, your erythrocyte sedimentation rate. She's like, there's tons of markers for inflammation that will tell you right there that like you gotta chill. You gotta deal with
Well,
some
and
stuff.
this is why when people say, "Oh, eating red meat it causes inflammation," no, it doesn't. Red meat on its own doesn't do anything to you. But if the system's already going haywire and you're eating a lot of sugar and you're eating red meat, then it's going to look like red meat's the culprit, right? But like the party's been going on for a while. Like this is
Yeah.
not.
And those which talked about the elimination diet, because they said like, well, what if people can't afford to go have tests done, or they live in a part where you don't have access to XYZ? And she said, then step one, elimination diet. And what does that mean? No gluten, no sugar, no alcohol. Nowhere on that list did she say no red meat. No, it was those three things that were the top that she said, she goes, and what's the worst that happens? Like, okay, maybe you don't feel 100% better, but you're not going to feel worse not having those three things. And if you already feel bad, but you think it's going to be feeling worse eliminating those things from your diet, she's like, that's your psychological tie to it, because your body wants to feel good. And your brain is telling you, like, oh, these are the things that make me temporarily feel good, but you have to think long term. And so,
Yeah.
what does it take? 3 weeks to really jumpstart feeling better?
When I was in my 20s, so when I did the elimination diet the first time I was 28, and within 10 days, a knee injury that had chronic acute pain wouldn't go away for a year and a half was gone in 10 days. 10 days, pain in my knee was gone. And I had full rotation back because I'd injured it like behind the head, yoga, like sorry. I'd set the stage doing aerial because I would hook my feet and then twist, and then it was putting pressure on the knee. And then when I put my leg behind my head, it just popped it. And I've never had any surgeries though. Like I've never had to go that route. I just, I did the anti-inflammatory diet, not realizing what I was doing. My doctor put me on it and I would just, okay. And I was like, well, my knee feels amazing. Like what happened? He goes, we took the inflammation out of your body. That's what we did. And I was like, I was blown away. And so then I was just like, I need to understand more about this
Yeah.
process. So yeah, like then and the other thing that is so incredible about the the elimination diet is that when you do it, it lowers the volume on the mind chatter too, because when you're eliminating those gut bacteria, that part changes. So the elimination diet is just so powerful. And this way, when I put someone on it, they can go through a reflective phase because now their brain is clearing out. And so true information can like get to their brain and they're like,
Yeah.
oh, they remember things better. They're more clear. And it's not an abrasive way, like, oh, that memory came back. It's more just like this soft reflection of like, oh, me doing this every day isn't helpful.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know, and And so the elimination diet, obviously, it clears the inflammation out, which lowers the volume totally on everything. And it does take about 30 days. Once you're older, like when I was younger, it took 10 days, but like once you're older, it takes a little bit longer, 3 weeks, like you said, for you to be like, wow, so I'm feeling so much better now. And and then, depending on how bad it is or whatever, like some people might need to do it for 60 days to
Hmm.
really get out of the woods. But this is how the body can recalibrate, right? So then what you thought was an autoimmune issue isn't. It's actually just the immune system was just not doing its job properly.
Yeah.
And so many women end up with like Hashimoto's, all of these issues, and it just blows my mind. I'm like, have you ever tried to just clean up your diet? What's crazy to me is the resistance I get is like they
Yeah.
don't go there. It's like, and I say it's crazy. It's really not. It's actually when we've developed a trauma that has become attached to an identity, that energy starts to protect itself. When I taught yoga, I got really into the healing part, like the releasing the trauma part. And I would spend hours watching bodies, watching patterns, watching the way they moved, watching the way they would breathe, watching everything. And you would see people would move in a way that they would try to avoid certain subtle movements, right? And I'm like, why
Mhm.
are they bending like this instead of like this? Why are they not fully engaging? Why are they in the... And it's because they were protecting their traumas. And when I would go in and be like, let's move this way, like the closer I got to the trauma being released, the bigger the demons got. And I get excited. I was like, we're there. I'm like, yes, keep going, keep yelling at me. It's fine. We're almost there. And then they would go from being hostile to just crying.
Yeah.
And that would come out. And I always tell the story of this girl in Italy that I taught because it was so vivid. And I didn't know her, but I was assisting her at a workshop I was hosting, and she refused to bend from her thoracic spine. She would bend from her uh, lumbar, like a lot of people do, because it's easier to bend there. And I was like, let's open your heart. Come on, let's bend from the chest. And she just would collapse. And I remember, and she had this like defeat look on her face. It wasn't a physical issue. And I just got this energy. I almost started crying. And I said, it's okay to live. There was something inside her that had died, and I didn't know what I was picking up on. I was like, it's okay. I almost cried while I was working on her. Finally got it. And then she just started sobbing. Afterwards, she came up to me and she goes, I lost my father a year ago. And she's been stuck ever since.
Yeah.
And so it's so powerful to move through the body and to utilize the breath to shift that energy, especially the spine, because the spine is where the vagus nerve is, and that's where the trauma gets stored. And if you can keep that mobilized, it's not 100% effective. Obviously, I was doing yoga and I was stuck in my own apathy and vigilance, but it does help a lot.
And I had no idea. I guess because my brain was like, here's a protocol, here's how to deal with something, here's research it, da 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 da. Like there's steps to be taken. And really what she was saying was like, well, the steps are within yourself. You have to unpack it. You have to practice physically releasing these things. It's not to say that people don't have actual autoimmune diseases that need medication and all that. She's like, yes, some people do need that. But then the diet comes in that helps to maybe wean you off of a medication. And you know what I mean? Like, but it's the idea that more doctors need to be open to the whole body and what's really going on in somebody's life that's leading them to this place instead of just looking at a set of labs um, and just making a diagnosis.
And it's the unpacking part is critical. Like when we make the comment, she has so much baggage or he has so much baggage.
Hmm.
That's ultimately what we're referring to is this unpacked energy,
Hmm.
right? And I learned when I was in my late 20s to start really unpacking as I go. Like I didn't want my past to have an effect on my present, let alone my future. And again, we're not always aware of what we're carrying around, but as soon as I become aware, I'd clear it out because that makes your capacity to be more present more viable. And like these traumas, they create their own energetic, like parasitic
Yeah. Yeah.
presences in the body. And then you're identifying with life in a way that's skewed based on that trauma, right?
Yep, absolutely. And people hear the word trauma and that almost feels traumatic. Like you think of trauma and you think of a scary, like event of like somebody getting murdered in front of you or, like something like very drastic like that. And that's really kind of how I always viewed trauma. And so to actually start to see it as like, no, trauma can be, like you said, grieving a loss. It can be, the end of a relation. It can be whatever it is for that person. And instead of just having this one, unilateral vision of what trauma is, it's so allowing people to know it doesn't have to be this crazy event that happened.
No, like I
When we
said,
talk
there's
about unpacking, it's like it can sound like, oh God, I have baggage, and baggage means bad, scary stuff. And it's
it's just
not.
an unresolved, unpacked energy that we're carrying around with us, you know, and like COVID is such a good example. It just dragged on and it paralyzed people from being able to live their lives in a certain way. And I think this is what has exasperated a lot of women in our generation and why our stress level is even higher than like women 10 years ahead of us at the same time. And it's because of what we had to go through. Like that was really paralyzing, regardless of what your position was or what you were going through. It was the fact that life had been frozen in time and how we functioned. You know what I mean? Like
Yep,
there's not a single person who wasn't impacted.
100%.
You
And
know, there was some aspect of your reality that was just put on hold and like that had an effect on people.
it's once things started going again, you almost got lost in the fact of like, okay, it's back, and like just moving on, instead of having stopped and realized what the entire world had just gone through. It's like it was almost like, okay, move on. And you can't just move on. It's just brushing it under the rug.
Yeah. And so it's like I'd mentioned that the body keeps score, the body keeps the score. That's a great book that those two worlds merge of the experience, the visceral, somatic research, and then like just the intellectualization of like patterns and you
Hmm.
know what traditional medicine would bring to the table. And I like that book for that reason. It's really powerful and it's it's just it's unfortunate, but at the same time it's also nice to know that like we can do something about it,
You can
right?
do something about it. Yeah.
Like that saying you're not responsible for what happened to you, but you're responsible for like it's not your fault for what happened, but you are responsible for healing from it.
Yeah.
And this is where, you know, like I find myself when it comes to people I choose to deal with and don't deal with. It's like, are you going to let that event become who you are? When I think about the shit I've been through, Katie, you know, just
Hmm.
losing my brother and being assaulted. And, you know, there was a guy on TikTok and he was like, because he's 27, he's like, people want to say that I don't know what I'm talking about because I'm young, but he's an asshole. He's like, it's just calories in, calories out. And he always yells at people for like, it's supposed to be easy and you're making it harder. You're saying it's something else. And I'm just like, bro, because he was like, I've been through shit too. I went through a breakup and I have to take care of my dad. And I was like, wow. I've been through three major breakups in my life, like on
Yeah.
top of like, and I was like, I'll show you hard. Like, try going through litigation and being harassed for 2.5 years by the opposing counsel. Like, and try to maintain. The attorney in that deposition asked me pretty much everything short of, "Do you think you deserve to breathe?" I swear to God, he was such an asshole. Tried to disqualify me for my existence. You know what I mean?
Yep. And it's and people feel like they always want to one up each other and say like, no, 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 I got through it. This is how you do it. You're fine. Like if I can do it, you could do it. It's like, well, not everybody has the same path, and maybe there's different healing at different times. It just, and when people are combative like that, it's just they clearly haven't dealt with their own
Well, and
stuff.
it's like I walked away from that situation not being a man hater in spite of the fact that I should have been. Um, you know what I mean? Someone tried to kill me. But no, actually what makes me not like men is my like again, and it's I don't hate men, but like how you show up with me is gonna let me know how I feel about you.
Yeah.
But no, but like just what I've been through, and it's like I'm still trucking, I'm still, building a business, and I'm still living life, and I'm still, having joy and creating things, and I don't want to die before I die.
Yes. Because it's like also what is the alternative? To waste away and the world still moves on with or without you. So it's your decision. Do I want to move forward or do I want to stay in the same place?
Yeah. Yeah. And I think a lot of people, one, again, I think they get attached to these pain bodies, these painful identities. They want to
Mhm.
stay in it. They like the attention they get from it. But it's like you're never gonna get the life you want while maintaining this persona either. Like you had to choose at some point.
Yeah.
Like you either want to heal and have the loving experiences that are possible, or you want to maintain your pain and your defensive nature and hate everything that comes at you and hate life. And you know what I mean? It's like
Because that's what
no
you,
one's telling you not to be a fighter, but choose your battles and like let's not hold on to the things that don't serve us anymore.
yeah. And it's hard when somebody lives in such a constant state of like pain, etc. It's the only way they know how to live. So making the decision of like, okay, I'm going to change, it's like changing their entire identity.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
And again, it's not even the fear of the person consciously. It's the fear of the energy that doesn't want to go. It's that
Mhm.
I call them parasites. In my book, I call them parasites. Like that those things that don't serve us that we identify with, they're
Yeah.
parasitic because all they do is drain us of our life force,
Mhm. They're
prevent
not giving you anything. It's not a
yeah,
symbiotic relationship.
100%, right? So like you do take a risk when you heal, and you have to be willing to be wrong ultimately. Like if your belief that you developed is, life's horrible and I always get hurt. In order to heal from that, you do have to be willing to be wrong. And
Absolutely. You, and it goes back to being vulnerable too, right? Like the best relationships come from vulnerability.
Mhm.
And that also means with yourself. You have to be vulnerable with yourself and be honest and say, okay, like with myself, I can't pinpoint that event, right? But it's becoming clearer and clearer that I am holding on to something from somewhere, and that it does need to be unpacked.
Well, but I mean, come on, Katie, you went through a divorce and you went through a very stressful relationship. It was maybe not on Tuesday, December
Yeah.
12th of 2018 that there was an event, but it was like just the ongoing
Yeah.
walking
And
on eggshells, the ongoing
in
pressure.
divorce, yeah, it's like anything legal. You
Ugh,
you don't really realize until you've gone through a legal process how
awful.
truly,
They're awful.
truly awful. And we didn't even have, I mean, we didn't have children together. So I can't even imagine people going through a divorce with children involved and like major, major assets. But it was like just enough to have like some back and forth. And even though it wasn't like horrible. It was just the process. And if there was a conflict, it seemed to escalate when you feel like you know this person. This never would have been like an escalation, but it just feels like having that legal process involved, it just heightens everything, and everything is taken personal, and everything is, you see the phone ring and you see your attorney on the phone, and it's like you immediately go like this because you're like, oh God, is it going to be good? Is it going to be bad? Is it another
Oh,
bill
I
that
know.
needs to be paid? It's like
Trust
you just
me.
you don't really realize how taxing it is until you go through it, and it's like, oh wow.
And then just dealing the insensitivity of the law.
Yeah.
You're going through something so heart-wrenching, and they're just looking at it in black and white,
Mhm.
and it's so unemotional to them, right? And
So
so,
removed, so removed. And it's,
yeah.
and it, um, I mean, the one good thing about my personality is that with my attorney, I just said, you're the professional. I'm paying you to do a job, and I trust you're going to do me right. So I'm hands off, like, here you go. And and she said, that's the best thing you can give. That's the best gift you can give me, is to just let me do my job instead of wanting to get back at the person so much that you're in a cycle over things that just in the grand scheme don't matter in life.
Mhm.
And I told her, I was like, these are the important things to me. The rest, I don't care, not important. Easiest way to get through this is the way I want to go through. So to be with, I have a lot of, empathy for people who are in a relationship where the person just wants to get the other person. And that's got to be beyond traumatic.
Well, and in my situation, because I had known him for 15 years, so my attorney, and he was not someone I was dating. Everyone always thinks it was romantic. It was not romantic at all. He was like a big brother to me, but my attorney was like, God, this feels like a divorce. This whole litigation feels like a divorce. And I'm like, well, I've known him 15 years, you know what I mean? And we were in business together, so there's that. But like, you know, people would say to me, "Oh, I hope that you da 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 to him, and I hope blah blah blah," blah." And that would overwhelm me. And I'd be like, "I can't listen to you talk like that about this. Like,
Yeah.
I'm already really prickly about it. Please don't do that."
Yeah.
And my response was always like, he has an ex-wife and they have kids and they hate each other. And now that she knows he's capable of assault, he gets to deal with her the rest of his life. Like he gets
Yeah.
to deal with what she's going to do to him.
Yeah.
Like I don't need to be his karma. Like once we get
Yeah.
settle this, like she is going to be his karma. I'm like I don't need to
But
no.
that's just it. It's
Thank
like,
you. I want to settle. I want to get my expenses paid. I want to move on with my life.
and move on.
That's
And
it.
that's what it came down to for my divorce. Like, I just wanted to move on. And, when people would say of like, he did that to you, doesn't that hurt? Don't you want to like, and I just feel like, for what? Like, get back for what? Because what's done is done. You know, we're in this situation. Let's just make it as easy as possible to get out of the situation and move forward. So why would I want to contribute to something that would actually just elongate the process and would just escalate things? For what? Just for jollies? Because I'm not happy, and this is not putting me in a, the best mental state. Like, I just want to move through it. And we
Right.
did.
But given your personality, I can see how the way you handled it might not have even been the best for you
Yeah.
because
It was a
the
balance. And that's why I'm thankful for my attorney, who was like, no, like, would step in when it was like, okay, and that's when I'd step back and say, okay, it might ruffle some feathers, but if that's the letter of the law and that's what's right and that's what you think I deserve, then go for it.
well,
And that's,
there's just so many different layers to
yeah,
like
and that's just it. There's so many layers.
the trauma and then the healing associated with it. Like 80% of my clientele is women who are like, I want to be bold like you. And it's really because they never learned that it was okay and safe and good to use their voice, right? And so they want that. Like the same women who fucking hate me for using my voice are the same women who really want to use their voice, right?
Yeah,
And that's part of that process. You know what I mean? It's like
absolutely.
when I think back on some of these things I went through in behind litigation, when I think back on that deposition, like, for example, I think about this and I'm like, God damn it, I should have said this. But the defense counsel was like, why didn't it occur to you when your father injected money into the business to not give it back to so and so? And I'm like, the fuck is your problem, bro? Like, because I had expenses to pay, he was not my first priority. What I should have said was, I know you're just an attorney, but he was never a lender, he was an investor. So why would I owe him that? I didn't. Like the business would owe him that if we were profitable, but I didn't owe him that money. He wasn't my fucking lender. Like in hindsight, I'm like, I wish I used my voice
Uh,
more. And I was a bitch during that deposition. He was like, he was like, "Do you not like me? You told the psychologist that you don't like me. Did I do something to you previously?" And I was like, "Bro, um, you're representing the guy who assaulted me, defaulted on
yeah.
our business, and now you're countersuing me, and you want to know why I don't like you?" My attorney started laughing and he goes, "I don't think it's personal, bro. What is
I
wrong
know.
with you? Did you just waste everyone's time to bring up
Yep.
why I didn't like you? I don't fucking owe you that, you piece of."
Just try to get a reaction out of you to then use it against you.
Well, then he was like, "Your client is acting hostile." I said, "Hostile? You should have been there the night your client beat me up. I'll show you hostile."
What did he say to that?
He just rolled his eyes and did like one of those. But I was just like, yeah. So,
Yeah.
so part of healing is not just kind of the getting it out of your system. Sometimes
Yeah.
healing is rectifying things in a way that you show up for yourself, right?
Yeah. And
And
it's funny because it's like I am a more passive person. And and it took it's like, how did I get all the way to a point where finally using my voice was saying I want a divorce? And I just think about if I had used my, if, you can always, hindsight, but it's like if I had just always used my voice, would that have changed things? You know what I mean? Like you can kind of play that game. But I was like, okay, I'm not going to live in the past, but what I am going to do moving forward is just now always use my voice.
mhm.
And if people like you, they'll stick around. And if they don't,
But
find out now.
it prevents further pain.
Mhm.
It does. I mean, in the moment, it's a little shocking and people are going to react, but it's like, I'm not here to protect your feelings. I'm here to make sure that I'm integrated.
And it's and
You know what I
it's
mean?
a
And that's the other
hundred
component
percent.
to to the program that,
Yeah.
we teach is that part. We don't want you
Mhm.
eating old patterns. We don't just clean the system so you can go out there and do that same
Yep.
shit again. We teach
It's
you
so true
how
though.
to show up, set boundaries, use your voice. Like,
And I didn't do any of that stuff. And that's why I don't blame him for for the ending of our relationship. I actually more so blame myself, not like in a negative way, but more of like, you know what? I need to take ownership of I didn't speak up. I didn't say, you know what, don't do that. That doesn't work. You know, like I didn't use my boundaries. And so it's like, okay, noted, moving forward, I have to be in control of my situation and not just let somebody else come in and dictate and do everything. I let him. So that's on me. We all have our, roles to play. But it would be silly for me to sit here and act like a victim of, oh, the relationship didn't work. He was a bad guy. He did this, he did this. Well, no, I also let him do that. You know what I
no,
mean? Like,
absolutely. And it's not about looking to your past and blaming.
yeah,
It's not that. Like I don't
that gets you
blame
nowhere.
I don't blame anybody. You know what I
Yep.
mean? Like I'm here, I impact it, I'm still gonna live my best life. But it's about acknowledging
Acknowledging.
role you played, and do you want to continue that role moving forward, or do you want to change it, right?
And I didn't want to continue playing that role. And it was like, but it was too far gone in the sense of like, I had changed. Do you know what I mean? It was like, I now don't want to be this person. And that's on me. And here we are. And really the only solution was divorce. But I came out of it knowing myself more. And for that, I'm like, that's what I have to take away from this is now I know more about myself.
Right. Right. But there's still part of your nervous system that's stuck, and that's
Oh,
okay. We'll figure that out. We'll get to it.
oh, it's there. It's like now it's like starting to like kind of well up a little bit more of like, oh, maybe that was something more. Maybe I'm downplaying it. You know what I mean? It's like maybe it affected me more than I even knew it did. So it's definitely something worth exploring.
Well, and people always ask me, why do you respond? Like, why do you and of course, and they do it like out of like almost resentment, like they're mad. Like, why would you even bother like when it's over saying something after the fact? I don't do it because I'm trying to impact the other person's feelings or perception of
Yeah.
the situation. I do it to show up for her, for my inner child. Like that's who I'm doing it for. So that way I don't leave that part of her stuck in time going, I needed to say this. I needed to say this because ultimately that relationship's with me, and I say it so she can hear that I spoke on her behalf. Like I have to be my own advocate, and that's why I say what I do, and I am as just and then in real time I'm unpacking. I'm not holding it. I'm not holding that tension.
Mhm.
I'm not holding that resentment. I'm just saying my piece again, not for them, not for
Yeah.
the other, whoever they are. It's for me. And then I can walk free.
Powerful.
Yeah. Then I can walk away from the situation and be like, I did what I needed to do, and it's over.
And that's one thing that I've gotten really good at the last couple of years is being able to just walk away from a situation because I spoke my mind, because I set a boundary, because of XYZ. It's like I can easily just, okay, that doesn't work for you. That's okay. And like not ever think about it again. Because it's like I stood up for myself.
And these are the parts that are so critical because this is how you don't repeat, right? It's like, again, we don't just want to like clean out the system. We want to teach you how to be formidable and how to be integrated. You know what I mean? My therapist, when I went to therapy at age 20 because of my mom, and she said, you become powerful by synchronizing everything. If you're disowning aspects of yourself, you leave yourself vulnerable to attack, to being weaponized, to being manipulated, because you're rejecting those parts of yourself. So it's
Mhm.
always really critical to pull in the parts of yourself that you don't necessarily like, but to learn to love and embrace them anyway, so that those cells are integrated. And when you're integrated, then you are a force to be reckoned with, right? Because no one can weaponize you.
Yep.
And
Yep.
that's really ultimately how you stay healthy. But if you're rejecting parts of yourself, people use that
Mhm.
against you. Like I talk about this constantly when people are like, I don't want to attract narcissists. I don't want to be vulnerable to narcissists. Well, then quit outsourcing yourself. Quit outsourcing your validation. Quit outsourcing your need for approval, your need for love. Quit. It's nobody's responsibility to love you but your own.
Absolutely.
That's it.
100%.
That's it. Like, and if you're in a position where you are looking to get in a relationship because you fucking need to be loved, you are setting yourself up for catastrophe.
100%.
The moment you're like, I have too much to give, that's when you know you're good to go. But if you're still in that deficit, you are setting yourself up. And so it's really critical that not only do we heal the body so that the mind is clearer, but we change the system's patterns and
Yeah.
outputs so that you're in a different place altogether.
Mhm.
It's so important, you know what I mean? And this is why it's trauma is not, or healing, or all these issues, they're
Yeah.
so layered.
There's so many layers and it's I I think and at least for myself kind of going through this all in real time with you of just really saying, okay, there's something. And now we need to explore that and just take that first step forward and it is just saying, okay, there's something there. Don't know what it is.
And
X,
you
Y,
know, when
Z.
you release the trauma piece, it just feels like relief. People say that when you release your trauma, you rest a lot. Actually, that's not true. When you actually release your trauma, it's like going to the bathroom.
Energy.
You're lighter. You're
Yeah.
actually
Yeah.
lighter. You feel better. It's you're in it that your body's trying to compensate, and that's where the fatigue comes from.
Yeah.
It's once you've released it, the load's gone. You actually are much lighter and more integrated and more present. You might have maybe 24 hours to a week of reset cellularly, where you actually feel yourself catching up to real time and you feel the time you lost. Like that's the grief you might go through sometimes
Yeah.
when you literally just get it out of the system. Um, but no, it's not this long term like rest period that you go through. That is still an indication that you're holding on to it.
Well, that's good for people to note.
No, absolutely. And this is something I learned early on, like really early on when I was learning to overcome some of my own pain patterns. I'm talking 23, like a long time ago. If I gave into my pain, it drained me. If I was having an emotional release, I actually felt lighter afterwards. So that was my way of knowing which one was which. Like,
And
because
how would you define emotional release?
so when I would do the yoga and we would get to a spot in the body, and the next thing you know, they're crying, but they don't really know
Okay.
why they're crying. They're just getting it out, right?
Yeah.
The energy is just now getting itself out of the system. That's an emotional release. That if you are hardwired to a pain point and you're giving into that pain point, that's an
Mhm.
addiction. That's a cellular addiction that you're
Yeah.
getting into, and that's going to drain the system.
Oof.
So,
It's just scary to think that we have so much more control than we think we do. We always want to say it's something else that's causing XYZ, but it is really, it comes down to how we react to something and how we take ownership of it and how we solve it. And that we do have the ability to do it and the capabilities to get out there and find the solution.
well, and of course, 80% of women would, because again, 80% don't use their voice. I mean, show me these women with autoimmune disorders, and I'll show you their codependency. I'll show you their people pleasing.
Oh
I'll show
yeah.
you their unwillingness to actually find their voice, to have create an identity, to pick a side, to get out of
Mhm.
confusion. I'll show you all the patterns. They're all there.
It's
They're
exactly what
all there.
a doctor said. She's like, it's that feeling of like you need to make everybody happy. And in doing so, you're
Where
not
do you
making
think
yourself
breast
happy.
cancer comes from?
It's the stress, the inflammation. It's like you can just start to see that trail back.
Breast cancer it breeds reason, or it's cancer breeds on resentment. And so women tend to get breast cancer because they are people pleasing, and it's their resentment that they resent themselves. They resent not doing for themselves. That's where it goes.
We have to start putting ourselves first.
Yeah.
And it's like the analogy of like when you're on an airplane, they tell you to put the oxygen mask on yourself first before your child, because it's like if you're not good, you can't take care of them.
And a lot of people, unfortunately, they like getting a codependent to put themselves first is like it's so hard. Like they literally think they're gonna die if they don't rescue others first. Like
Mhm.
it's so deep. It
It is
is
deep.
so deep in them to think that they need to, and it's a safety thing. Codependency is all about safety. It's like as long as everyone in my environment is okay, then I'm safe.
Yep.
And you're actually not, but okay, keep following that idea.
And it's a scary system to try to break.
Yeah.
Ugh.
It is. It absolutely is. And again, that's why I'm here. That's why I help women break that patterning because it doesn't serve you. And then you get to your late 30s, early 40s and above,
Hmm.
and you have the autoimmune issues, you have cancer, you have all these problems because you denied the self. Anytime we put others before ourselves, we are denying ourselves, we are rejecting ourselves, we are betraying ourselves. And that is not good energy for the body to take on decades for decades. Like that is
Yeah.
the body does not like that.
But the good news is we can help you change.
Yeah, absolutely. Like, yeah. I mean, to be integrated and whole. And the other thing that the misconception about using your voice or healing or finding your power, like there is a lot of fear behind it again, because that energy doesn't want to leave your body. It's going to try to lie to you and say, oh, you can't go there, you can't do that for all these stupid reasons. And what I find so liberating is that like you actually don't hear like all those things that you worry about, the judgment, the criticism. You don't hear them as much anymore when you really do the integrative processes because you're so integrated that you're not at that vibration that would pick up on the criticism or the judgment. Like it's that feedback loop has been closed.
Hmm.
And so now, like, if I make a post and I egg on people and they're like, you're ugly, you're old, you're stupid, you're whatever, I'm like, and your candidate lost. I don't know what to tell you. Like, I don't give a fuck. Like, I'm not, you know what I mean? Like, I might go toe to toe with them, but viscerally, like in my body, I'm not like, oh my God, they're hurting my feelings. It's
I
not,
know, like you can walk
not
away
that.
from the computer and you don't think about it again. It's like,
I mean, I'm usually giddy with the reactions, you know what I mean? Like, oh, I
mhm.
poked you. But it's not this like, oh, they don't like me. It's like, of course you don't like me. I don't care.
Let them, let them
I know
use
you
the
don't
let
like
them theory.
God.
God, it's
And so again, like I said, when you do the integrative work and you're not outsourcing all that anymore, you
mm,
literally take back your power and you become more whole. And your capacity to be present and to show up is more whole, and your body responds, your body heals.
and your body, and that's what people need to understand. Your body does heal itself. You
Hmm.
know what I mean? It regenerates, it heals, it does amazing, amazing things, but you just have to give it the chance to do it.
Yeah,
Break
and
the
you have to be willing. There is a risk. There is a risk, but the only thing you're losing are things that don't serve you.
exactly, exactly.
That's all you're losing. That's it. And I mean,
Yeah.
I can't get off this bandwagon. I have friends who they openly admit that they don't always have the energy for me because when they complain, I'm not going to ruminate with them. I'm going to be like,
Yeah.
why don't you do this? Why don't you actually do something about it? And they're committed to ruminating. They just want to enjoy the drama. And it's like,
Yeah.
well, if you're constantly getting sick, why don't you actually get to the source of it instead of going to the ER once a month? Like, I don't
Yeah.
know. Just
Do
saying.
something. Yeah.
Exactly.
Have to make
So,
a change. It's like if again, if you keep doing the same thing and it's not working, you got to change something.
well, yeah, treating symptoms is never going to win. It's never going to get you the ultimate results that you're looking for, you know?
Yeah.
And so even when I work with some of my natural doctors and we're still on the symptom, and I'm like, this keeps popping up. We haven't gotten to the core if this is continuing to pop up. And I will push them. I'm like, we need to address this at a different angle because
Yeah.
the surface level symptom is not it's not cutting it.
It's not cutting.
So anyway, I don't usually do a call to action, but I'm gonna do a call to action. So if anyone out there is listening and you do want to just completely reset and get your body recalibrated and your mind clear so it can be reframed and actually live your best life. Like that's what we do. That is what we do. And like once you take ownership of that, no one can take it from you.
And it is scary, and it sounds daunting, and it seems overwhelming, but it doesn't have to be if you just take that first step. You know what I mean? That just look into the information, look into, just say, you know what, this resonates with me. I want to look more into this. And you know what I mean? It doesn't have to be like a jumping to like all the way ahead, 60 steps. It's like, no, just sit with it. Just sit with the video, just sit with how you're feeling and let it happen.
Yeah, we're here to support like your process.
100%.
There's absolutely no reason to be stuck. And again, like it only gets harder with age.
I'm proof.
I mean, there's no reason why, like, I mean, I have incredible energy. Like I go all day long. If I do caffeine, it actually ruins me. I can't it just it's I'm like this and then I can't focus. So like I can't even do caffeine now. And I sleep. Oh my gosh. Like yesterday I woke up at 10:30. I'm like, it is a Monday, Paige, get it together. And then like I set my alarm for 9 today and I was like, oh wow, like but I will sleep like I'm going to another planet. And so like some of these benefits to just healing yourself, they're just
Yeah,
they're across the board. Everything from like your physical body feeling better and sleeping better and getting rest to just having a really healthy relationship to yourself.
which then gives healthy relationships in every other aspect of your life.
Absolutely. So, well, thank you, Katie. I am so glad that you were here as usual. I love our talks. And till next time.
Till next time.